All right, Stefan, nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
Yes,
How are you doing?
yeah, I'm doing well. Like we had a small conversation before. I told you also, uh,
Yeah, yeah,
been hiking. I've been hiking, and
yeah.
it's really also I have to thank you also because I've been doing some of your programs and studying
Mm-hmm.
material, and it really changed my relationship with my body and also what my body is able to do. Just spending
I'm glad to hear that.
climb around like an animal, climbing up the
Mhm.
mountain. It just gives me so much joy and pleasure. Um,
Yeah, definitely. I can relate to that.
yeah, so
Yeah.
I've been looking forward to this conversation already for a while because I do many practices. Wim Hof method. I guide also Wim Hof
Mm-hmm,
retreat
mm-hmm,
and
mm-hmm,
and include also other things like also the physical layer, also the emotional layer, mindfulness. And I feel like
mm-hmm.
I've trained with several trainers, teachers, but I feel also with your approach, I feel a certain depth to it, and that it's not just about doing something, but also the quality how you do it. And I think you're a great teacher for this.
Thank you. I'm trying. I'm trying. I'm still learning.
Good.
Hopefully forever.
Hopefully forever. So
Yeah.
yeah, my first question would be like, what triggered for you this deep exploration? Because yes, it's kind of nerdy also to go so deep, right? But
Yeah.
also
Yeah.
brings a lot of reward. So what triggered it for you to do this exploration? And yes, how did this journey start for you?
Yeah. I don't know exactly I couldn't point at something specifically, but I always just love to move. So before I even thought about how movement will relate to life and how having a practice, a movement practice, or a practice in general, because a practice could include other things such as writing and meditation and so on and so forth. How could teach you to better act in the world and relate to other people and to regulate yourself and be with yourself and so on and so forth. So before all of this, I was just excited to move all the time. And I loved arts as well. So I studied music. I was in studying music in high school. I don't know how you call it, like high school musical. Uh, and that cultivate me passion for arts. Um, and meanwhile, I was also a swimmer, so I was a competitive swimmer, swimming from since I was 5, and I did it for like 10 years. So I was in this kind of competitive athletic environment. I dropped that at some point, and then I went into capoeira, and because it had some movement, and it had also music, and my father was a martial artist, still is. So I always was passionate about martial arts. Um, Somehow I ended up doing the least martial style of martial arts. One of them. Yeah, I think also because I love all the acrobatics, and like at that age, seeing people jumping like that, it was definitely something that sparked my interest. So I went in that direction, and meanwhile I started to explore all other kind of things, from bodybuilding to calisthenics to CrossFit to yoga to everything that was out there. Yeah, kind of out of curiosity, and just the urge of developing skills. So I think this would be kind of the first relationship with sports and arts. Obviously at that age, not really thinking too deep about the matter necessarily, and just doing it for the love of being physical and being in the body and moving, right? Because it's we all often like try to be so deep about it and so philosophical, which I think it's great, but we forget about the simple joy of engaging in a physical activity and developing a skill, right? Is something, there is something very that brings a lot of pleasure in engaging in such an act, and we do this all the time, right? It can be something with your hands, something such as knitting, right? Or it can be a motor skill as music, but you also engage in something more in a type of self-expression kind of area. It's like you develop a motor skill, but you are also expressing yourself. So anything, right? Even like learning how to really cut really well the vegetables, right? You're like really fast, and there is like some kind of satisfaction coming from developing these skills. So this was, I would say, this was my trigger. If we are talking about what triggered me to go in this area, it was the simple pleasure of being physical and developing different skills. Now it's another story as I'm getting older and maturing, let's say. But yeah, this is how it all started.
Yes, I really like that you stress this also in the courses and the online programs. You say that oftentimes, like I hope you also and just enjoy it. You just have fun with it, and so I think most people, when I ask them also in the retreats, like what are your happiest moments in childhood? There are several things coming, but a lot of the times it's also something very, very simple, like playing with my friends, playing hide and seek, or climbing up the trees. These things, where the children, they just naturally all do it. Or this, I think there's actually. Um, and yeah, and yeah, I find this very beautiful that the pleasure is such an entry point, because I oftentimes also think about, if you if you want to motivate someone to engage in a deeper process of getting the connection with the body, especially if there's such a big disconnection, how to make it interesting, because it's sometimes difficult to explain, right? That it's worth it to explore the nervous system and explore the connection to the body. So I would be curious, how would you describe from your grown-up perspective now to a grown-up rational mind? Why is it so valuable to do this and to take time for this?
Yeah, well, it depends. There are multiple angles from which you can look at, right? So it's like something such as mental health, and you can look from it from the perspective of mental health, and from the perspective of physical health as well, right? And we all want to be healthy, and let's say not in a complete state of ecstasy, but let's say not suffer too much, right? Also, you don't want to be just happy and experience just positive emotions, because that would, that would not be a stable, let's say, kind of strategy of operating in the world, and it would consume you in one way or another. Also, you would not properly act in different situations, right? Because sometimes you need to grieve, and you need to cry, and you need to experience pain. But we try to do our best to experience as much as we can positive emotions, and be healthy, right, in our body. And then there are these two aspects of a practice that we need to juggle with, right? And this is why we have a practice in the broader sense. And then it's so I think this would be the obvious. It's like, okay, well, you want to be happy and you want to be healthy, so maybe that's a good idea. It's a good idea to engage in something such as a physical activity. Now then you can start to think about, okay, but how do I engage in physical activity, and what kind of physical activity? Because there is so much out there. what would be the most beneficial way of engaging in some kind of physical practice, or what should my practice include in order for me to be able to operate in life in a functional way, so I can develop beautiful relationships, and I can regulate myself, so I can be a decent person in the relationships I develop, and also to be able to suffer myself, let's say. Right, because we all have the cousin who's either judgmental or anxious or doubtful and so on and so forth in our head. Yeah, so then if we think about, okay, how and in what kind of practice we can engage in order to address, let's say, life in the best possible way, I would say it should be an open kind of practice that allow you to kind of follow your curiosity and connect with others and with yourself as well. So probably then bodybuilding would not be the best right solution, because it's you and weights and a mirror all the time, and the kind of what kind of behaviors and relationships with yourself and with others such a practice will develop, right? You ask yourself something like that. So again, like just to wrap it a little bit up, or to come back to the main question, I would say that we need a practice that includes something such as meditation, or some sort of meditative practice, right? It could be standing stillness practice, it could be mindfulness. We need a practice that requires from us to engage in problem solving, and I think that's something extremely valuable, because when we engage in life, we are constantly encountering problems, and how we are going to be able to solve them, it's going to depend on how often we actually be able to engage in such things, and how we can create a simulation that allows us to practice and develop better exploratory strategies, because this is what is going to allow us to solve a problem, right? If you know how to explore and gather the information and figure out what is going on in that structure, in the structure of the problem, you will be able to maybe find some solutions to it. So yeah, so some kind of meditative practice, problem solving, and then some kind of practice that allows you to connect with yourself, with your structure, to sense yourself, to develop some awareness, to be able to sample your body, to be able to figure out what's going on in your structure, as well as meditation allows you to kind of observe your thoughts, and allows you to recognize what's going on in your consciousness, what's arising out there. It's the same in the case of a physical practice. You need to see the bodily sensations that arise, because both goes hand in hand, right? Because if you want to act better in the world and be a better person in relationship with others, you need to be able to regulate yourself, right? So you don't lose yourself all the time in your thoughts, or not to let the bodily sensation to be, not the bodily sensation, but your physiology to take completely ownership on your behavior, right? And then if you're being able to start to sense yourself and become more aware and observe what's going on inside your structure, so something such as your cardiac rhythm, or how your palms are, right? They are cold, they are sweaty, they are warm. Maybe how you're eating, right? And you are starting to chew and you observe you're really fast and agitated, and that's going to also affect maybe how I'm communicating with my partner on the other side of the table, and so on and so forth. So I'm regulating all of these motor actions, or I'm trying to bring a little bit myself into a state of less alertness, which for which to in order to recognize this, I need to engage in a practice that allows me to kind of observe this. Yeah, so I think I'm keep going and going and going a little bit like all over the place. But I think, yeah, I would say this would be some reasons for engaging in a practice, and why would we even have a practice, and what would the practice include, and then like all the developing skills and athletic development, and all of these are like extra things, which are great but are not necessary, let's say.
Mm-hmm. All right. So I heard you say many things, of course, obviously physical health, you can do more things. And also very interesting, what I was also observing, many exercises I did also I think it was preparing the monkey or something like this. I think it does not exist anymore, right? Or is it still?
It exists, but just a version with the more recent classes, not the
Oh,
old
okay, okay, okay.
classes.
Anyway, like
Yeah.
I did them, and to be honest, like in the beginning, I couldn't see far enough, like what will be the outcome of this. You just do them, these weird exercises. Okay, let's try, let's try, let's try. And then, for example, I told you recently I've been going hiking a lot, and I've been practicing a lot over the winter. And now I realized my stability in my legs, for example, and the ability to balance on one leg and place my other leg safely, just navigate in nature, like on very terrain that is not straight, but more creative, and just navigate there without pain and with a lot of safety and a lot of pleasure. So this is the physical aspect. And also that it transfers into other movements, that are not directly practiced, but the practices that you provide are also like usable in other ways of moving, because they're so functional. That's how I experience it. Yes. And also you mentioned several times the emotional layer and managing relationships. And regulating your nervous system, getting to know your nervous system, and also realizing you have an influence if you have mindfulness, right? But also I heard you say something that I find very, very interesting, is the problem solving, and that you get to know yourself in problem solving, and how you react to it, how you can deal with it, and the structure of problem solving in general. And so my question is also did you see also in yourself a greater ability to navigate not just like unregular territory in nature, but also just unregular territory in life?
Yeah, I could definitely see the transfer in terms of exploratory strategies, right? Because this is why I said that if we want to become better problem solvers, we need to learn, first of all, how to better explore things. And exploration, it takes also the form of asking better questions, right? Because question will reveal information. So when it comes to how I solve problems that I encounter in my daily life, which can be often like problems of communication in relationship with other people, I'm just I learned how to, for example, better listen, and ask maybe better question in order to get to the core of the conflict or the problem. Also, now, yeah, so if we talk just about problem solving, I think this would be the fundamental thing. It's like exploratory strategies. And now it could be something such as asking better question and knowing how to get to the core of a conflict or of a problem or whatever it is, finding a common ground in between two people, if you have an argument or whatever the nature of the problem is. But it could be also something in terms of learning, because learning represents a problem. So, for example, when I was in med school, I had a much harder time, or the rhythm or the speed to which I was able to learn something was much slower, because I would not know how to explore, let's say, that piece of text that I had in front of me. And again, if you see it as a problem, right? You have a piece of text, for example, and you see it as a problem. The first thing I do is I need to identify the most relevant information. So you go through the test and you identify the relevant information, and then you need to incorporate it in some way or another, right? So in order to incorporate that piece of information and to understand it, I need to ask myself different questions related to that specific information to see if I understood it. And so I'm creating what I'm doing. I'm starting to create different constraints around the learning process of that piece of text, right? So that's again an exploratory strategies, because what I'm doing, I'm engaging in a creative exploration of that what I'm trying to learn. So I'm starting to structuring a set of questions. After I identify the most relevant information, I'm starting to structure a set of questions, and then I'm starting to answer. And maybe if I see that I'm competent in answering, I'm asking myself how that connects to other things that I already know, or things from my experience, or things like that, right? So I engage in an exploration of the subject that I'm interested in, to see how I can navigate that problem, and how can I better understand it, and maybe also like apply it if it has any applicability in life. So yeah, this would be something about how I understand problem solving, and how engaging in problems constantly in my own practice helps me also to better solve problems outside of the practice, because the same kind of process goes in my practice as I engage in different tasks.
Right. Yes. So I find this really amazing, actually, because what you're describing is one example now, like with a test or with the learning in general. But I feel also it's a skill that's really needed, especially these days, because the old constructs of how life works, I feel you cannot hold on to it anymore so much. And it doesn't work so much anymore to have, like, the university or school tells you this is what you learn and this is what you do with your life, because the world gets more and more complex, and we have to be able to navigate it also. And one thing would be writing text, but also to navigate the simple question, what do I want to do with my life, and how do I implement this in my life? And so I wonder also, you could say it's career-wise, but also maybe passion-wise, like if you also see there that the practice, the physical practice and mindfulness has also helped you with this.
Can you rephrase the question one more time? So if the practice help me understand my desires and my fantasies and how to move towards them better.
So what I mean is, I see, for example, with you, you have a strong passion,
Yeah,
for the movement, and you're teaching it. But this is not a job that you can learn about in school. The way you do it, you found a very
yeah, yeah.
unique way, your own way. And so if you see also like the transfer from the physical practice, from the movement practice into making your passion also really like your life mission.
Yeah, I mean, I don't see it necessarily as a life mission. It's something that I can relate to, and a way of communicating and living for now. So I don't know how things will change. I changed a lot in the last year, so I take that as an evidence of that I'm going to keep changing for the next in the future as well. So I can just say that right now it's something that I'm resonating with, and I'm really passionate about. I don't know if this passion will sometimes, not necessarily, I hope the passion will still be there, but I don't know if it's going to move in other direction, and in which direction it's going to go. But yeah, I think making this what I'm passionate about, um, something that I can use to I can work with, let's say, simply as that, like making a business out of my passion, like putting it like this is the easiest way. It just comes like naturally. It's just kind of emerging out of my passion, right? Also you have now, I have all the tools that the contemporary society, so all the tools that we have at our thumbs, let's say, really easy right now, and this makes it really easy to make a living out of your passion. So I think anyone who's passionate about something, and learns how to navigate the world of media and so on and so forth, can figure out how to make a living out of it. And yeah, I'm not very I don't think I really understand the question, but I think this is the best answer that I can give, in terms of I don't see necessarily how transfer would fit into this context, like that if there is a transfer from the practice into making the practice and my passion something that I can live from, and something that, but it's definitely something that I find very valuable for myself. And because I find it extremely valuable for myself, I want to spread it with the rest of the people. And I see a lot how people are engaging in their practice, the general public, who's very much influenced by all kinds of methodologies and of systems that are more interested in self-maintenance, right? The system want to maintain itself, whatever the system would be. It could be animal flow, it could be, I don't know, Pilates, it could be one style of yoga or another style of yoga. There are very few teachers, and definitely there is no system in itself that it's interested in teaching the practitioners, and even those who start to teach, how to spread, or how to teach the students to become explorative, independent, and autonomous in the way they engage in their physical practice. So it's like kind of feeding this voice of, I need to do this, and I need to do this way, I need to follow this protocol in order to achieve that and that and that, right? And now it's like also level 1, level 2, level 3, and all kind of ways of measuring one's competence. Obviously they are not reliable in any way, and they do not show for real the competence of someone, but they're all this kind of system that I think are damaging profoundly the way we engage with with our bodies, and the relationship we develop with our bodies, and the relationship we develop with others, because the way we engage in in our physical practice and the way we engage with others, it's going to, in our practice, it's going to affect also how we engage with the people in, let's say, the real world, because often I like to refer as a practice as a simulation. So I think it's something that the world needs, let's say, and people need, and this is what makes me want to work in this area, and why I want to teach what I'm teaching, movement and the philosophies and theories behind.
Beautiful. I'm curious about also your teachers. If you also had teachers that helped you to see through that, what you just described. For example, yes, that systems actually want to maintain themselves. And so it's a little bit, counterintuitive that the teacher teaches you to become independent. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So you need to do that in order, to get to this level of understanding. So did you have teachers also who helped you with that?
Yeah, I think I would mention just I can say that I had just two teachers that made a huge impact on the way I think, and the way I relate to my practice, and the way I think about it, and also they guided my interest in different domains that now I'm researching into, and that start to structure my philosophy and my thinking. I had multiple teachers, but I don't think that many were like feeding not necessarily the best ideas, and they were not necessarily so knowledgeable themselves, and they didn't have a good practice themselves. So obviously I had different teachers, but I would mention just the two that I made a really big impact on my practice, which are Joseph and Linda from Fighting Monkeys, Fighting Monkey. It's Joseph Furcek and Linda, and I don't know how to pronounce her second name. I should like learn that. But yeah, there are two teachers from Greece. I mean, they're not originally from Greece, but they live in Greece, in Athens. And I studied with them. So I was still in med school, and I was right after I had a really hard year in med school. It was the third year, which is basically I dropped all my everything that was I dropped my physical practice. I dropped my movement practice completely for 1 year. Also, I started to read a lot, so I was basically studying all the time. So I fall in a little bit in a depression, let's say. Now I don't like to use this term because I know that some people really suffer. But I was not myself. I was suffering more than I used to, and I was not enjoying and being so excited about life as I used to. And after the third year, Corona started, so we started to study at home and via Zoom and so on and so forth. So and everyone started to have these online classes, live Zoom classes, and I started to have again time to move, and I started again to practice, and I discovered Fighting Monkey, and I started to do some online classes with them, which led to me dropping my studies. Stopping to study medicine in the fifth year. I dropped completely, and I started the mentorship with them. And they have this philosophy. It's called a life supporting practice. They call Fighting Monkey life supporting practice. And yeah, a lot of now I'm not going to go into all that. I think people should just research into a little bit Fighting Monkey to understand what are they doing. But a lot of the principles that I'm talking as well, you will find them in their philosophy, in the let's say structure of what they are doing.
Mm-hmm. So let's dive a little bit into what you're doing. So I see you also referring a lot to the human animal. Would you like to talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, I think I mean the name was a little bit arbitrary when I chose it. I just thought like what would be an appropriate name, and I came up with human animal. And it's because it's I mean I think that a fundamental question of one of the fundamental questions, because I wouldn't say that, because I'm equally interested in developing as a human being and how we can morally act in the world, let's say, and be good people and develop good relationship and so on and so forth. But I'm equally interested in performance and developing skill and so on and so forth. So then one of the big questions is what makes us human, right? And then we have something such as we are social animals, right? So that means we need to we are gaining a lot, let's say, from interaction with others and integrating in a community and learning with others and playing with others and so on and so forth. We are animals that develop language and engage in communication, right? And which gives us a lot of responsibility in terms of what we are putting out in the world and how and what we are communicating, because through language, the knowledge of one becomes the knowledge of everyone else, right? And we are as well cultural animals, right? And that makes us very much defined, but not necessarily defined, but our perceptions and understanding of the world is constructed and molded by the culture in which we are born, or in which we are growing up, which again makes us questioning a little bit that what questioning the way we behave in the world, right? And how we act in the world and what we perceive in the world. So these are some questions, let's say, or some aspects of what human animal would be, and this would also drive our research and the areas in which we are engaging in our practice. So we are engaging in something. First of all, we are questioning everything that it's out there pushed into the culture, right? Because if we are culture and animals and our perceptions are molded by culture, but we are living in a capitalistic kind of society, in an age of science, which is great. I love science, but I think it can also lead to practices that are based in measurements and empirical thinking, and that kind of take us away from the realm of experience, right? We don't believe in experience anymore. It's always something that needs to be measured. They're always something that needs to be understood from whatever molecular kind of perspective, right? So we are quite questioning what it's out in the culture and how it grasp our perception, and how do we see our bodies, and how do we see the way we can interact with the environment, and how do we see the way we can interact with others based on how everyone else are doing it, right? Because this is what culture is. Basically are like different kind of behaviors that you are incorporated and integrating into yourself. You're embodying them without you questioning ever the validity and the not just the validity, but how it affects your health overall and your relationship with others and with yourself. And we are questioning all of this through not just by talking about such subject, by engaging in physical activity and by engaging in different games with different people, in different types of games that shows us that we can interact in ways that we did not find possible, we were not perceiving before, we were not being aware of before of actually doing that in our simulation, let's say. So we are constantly trying to feed the need for relatedness, right? By engaging with other people. We are also trying to feed the need of autonomy of the people. So we teach them how to be independent. We teach them how to ask vector questions, how to think for themselves, how to question the things that they see and how they arise and how they appeared and so on and so forth. Yeah, so this is why we call it human animal, but human animal, it's also competitive, right? It's not just about cooperation. It's very important. Cooperation is so important, but then we are also competitive. We are hierarchical animals. And that's also something that we need to be aware and we need to engage in, maybe some kind of competitive games. So we bring also that aspect in our practice, because you don't want to be too soft, neither. Like, you want to be sensitive and soft when the context allows you to, but you want to be tough and be able to compete when the environment asks you that. So again, we are creating this kind of simulation in our practice, where we engage also in competitive kind of games, even though it's often in movement. I saw that there is this trend of it's just about cooperation. There is too much competitiveness already in culture, so let's just focus on the other part. Well, if you put it like that, if you are aware that yes, you need to be able to compete sometimes, and if you don't, the word will just show you that you were wrong, because there will be so many instances in which you are competing, and you say, okay, there is enough of that, let's focus on cooperation and communication. That's great. And also our focus, let's say, it's more inclined towards that, but we still have to be aware that there is a world out there where competitiveness is also a behavior in which you will engage, and we are competing since before we are even in the form of humanoids or whatever, right? We are competing for resources, we are competing in our for reproduction, we are competing for so many other things, in between ourselves as a species, but with other species as well. Yes, and another very important aspect of what makes us humans is we are extremely explorative and creative, and this allowed us to thrive in an ever-changing environment, right? Because the landscape is constantly changing, the world is changing, the world how it looked hundreds of thousands of years ago, it's very different from how it looks now. But we were able to find solutions to the problems that the environment was arising constantly, and this we were able just through creative exploration and through creative exploration and innovation. And I think this is extremely important to incorporate in the practice as well. You want to enhance your creativity, because we often think about ourselves as not being creative. It's not really like creativity, let's say, it's biologically determined to a certain extent, but all of us, on a scale, let's say, we are creative and we can engage in creative act. We are creative all the time. When we are talking with each other, we already engage in a creative act. It's a spontaneous act. You do not know what someone will ask you, and you are still responding, and so on and so forth. But in so many areas, we are actually creative without us even realizing. We think that creation is for the artist, but creation is for everyone, and the scientist as well. Some of us are aware that science actually is extreme. The good scientists who make the biggest discoveries, the innovative scientists, they are extremely creative. They are artists, but just artists in let's say in another domain, another area. So I think it's very important also to address this creative urge and creative aspect of the human. And this is what we are doing by using constraints constantly, by bringing problems constantly to people and asking them to solve them. Because if you observe also in the course, in the courses, when we are engaging in the more open tasks, but a lot in our workshops, we are not offering so much solutions to the people, right? We are more creating, manipulating different constraints, creating different scenarios, and allow them to figure out the scenario and figure out how to solve that problem. And that's what is creative exploration. And this is how people learn to become more creative. It's and this you can use it also in anything you're doing. It can be, like try to make a dish and you don't have everything you need, right? So you have just some things in your fridge and you try to improvise. Well, those things that you have in the fridge represent the constraints that will allow you to, right? Because you don't have everything that you need. So you have some constraints and you need to figure out how with those things you can create something that it's eatable and maybe even tasty. The same when you are writing, you are manipulating constraints to constrain your thoughts, your capacity of thinking, right? To kind of wander around the thematic in between some boundaries in order not to be all over the place, because our capacity it's so broad that sometimes we just need a little bit to enclose ourselves in between some boundaries in order for creativity to reveal itself almost.
Beautiful.
Yeah, I think these are like some of why we are calling it human animal, and why I was relating to this name. But really the truth is that I chose the name before I deeply thought about it, because I knew that it's something that it's going to help me think. Maybe also it's going to guide my thinking about more important matters than just developing skills. I knew that I would know, someone will ask me one day, why human animal? So I knew that I have to like start to think about more humanistic matters if this is something that, so I use it as a constraint on my behavior. Yeah.
Yes. It's a constraint, but also it's a big container, the human animal.
Yeah, it's broad.
So yeah, I think it's just from you speaking right now, it's a very, very inspiring and so creative, and also obviously, it's obviously more than, I mean, just a physical exercise, or like, you know what I mean, just a physical practice, but
Yeah,
very,
yeah.
very holistic, and also yes, I'm holding different, very, very strong archetypical aspects that are really, really meaningful actually for every person, for their own life and for their own development. So yes, I would also be curious if sometimes also you get the feedback of people who are not aware of this when they start the practice with you, and then they see like, wow, okay, I make deep realizations about myself and how I deal with life. And this helps me actually also in areas where I did not expect it.
Yes, yes. I heard this a lot. I got this feedback, email, Instagram, everywhere. Even after the workshop, they are often they are simple ideas often. We are just not aware about. We don't spend that much time thinking, I guess. And then it leads us to it leads to a life that it's a little bit I don't know, I would say mechanical in the sense that you don't really thinking how what are the forces that are determining your behavior, and you know, like, why is it even important to think about what you put out in the world and the ideas you are communicating, and so on and so forth. So I think just by engaging in this type of conversation, already people like start to realize that there are ways there are things that we can learn about that would first of all expand our awareness of what's going on. Simply as that, what's going on in with me and what's going on in the world, right? Why I'm behaving how I'm behaving, what are the driving forces of my behavior? Why did I even think, you know, like, it's like, why did I even think that this is how I should engage with my body, right? Like, why repetitions, why number of sets, um why do I value more developing acrobatic skill than actually playing with another human, you know? Like, what are the driving forces of my behavior? So just engaging in this kind of conversation, and also allowing them to inviting them to explore, and inviting them to play, and inviting them um to ask questions. Their, I think, perception of what's possible and their interest expands, and I think that's very significant often. Also, when you are introducing concepts from psychological ecological psychology and constraint-led approach to motor development, and talk a little bit more about these schools of thinking, it's almost like many have an aha kind of moment, but also they become very interested, and they find something to be curious about and further research.
Yes, yes, beautiful. Yes, I can also just how do you say it in English? Like underline it, you know,
Highlight.
highlight it, you know. So because like you said, you know, many of the things that we do, you know, and I also saw it in myself. I was just so used to them, and also how I treat myself and how I think life feels like, and to perceive this as a normal, as a given, and to make a physical experience also that things can be different and feel different. Um, I think it's very empowering and very beautiful, to bring more awareness into that. Yes, I wanna ask you something a little bit less philosophical, but let's see. Maybe it's also going deep, because
Well, I'm not that good at answering probably directly at the question anyway, so who knows where I go with.
that's great. I can give you some make something out of it. Okay, so I'm doing right now the metamorphosis course, and so we're working a lot with the spine, also with the shoulder blades, but a lot with the spinal waves and the spinal exploration. And yes, I was just gonna ask you, like, because you made a whole course out of it, why is the spine so important and the spinal connection? connection to it?
I don't think it's necessarily the best course in terms of spine health. And that's something that I needed to come to that realization myself by doing it a lot. So when I was creating that course, and what was based off was some fantasy that I had in terms of some way I like to move, and I still do it. And I still enjoy it. But the spine, you don't want it to be too loose, right? So this is also why I think I'm mentioning, like, take care of how much time you spend with this. Like, don't do it 3 hours a day, and just that should not represent your main practice. And it's some ideas for you to explore and have fun with, in order to bring more awareness into your spine. But it's a certain type of awareness, because it does not make you more aware about its elastic quality, let's say, right, which is more like kind of athletic, generating athletic power through your torso, through your core, through the muscles, right? The way the muscles around the spine engage and create this kind of elastic recoil is very different from the softness of the waves. So often, or at least I used to. Now I start, when I'm creating the courses, I think more deeply about them. I'm not just kind of putting my fantasy, like, look, this is what I'm fantasizing about, and I find it very interesting. Give it a try if you want. Like, kind of, this was my approach, and I was not trying to swindle people like, this is what is going to make, like, your spine, it's going to be the healthiest kind of practice, and this is what your spine needs, and so on and so forth. It was more like, let's try to develop this and see where it gets you. So that kind of metamorphosis was more like a fantasy of mine, because at the moment I was a lot on spinal manipulation and waving and manipulating my shoulder blades, which simply allowed me to sense this region of my body in a way that I never experienced before, which is very interesting. And I think it's valuable to bring awareness in all over the body, right? And that's just one way to bring more awareness around the spine and about this wavy kind of quality. Also, for people who are interested in performance, it can be very interesting to be able to do all this kind of spinal manipulation and to be able to smoothly and beautifully move it. But I don't think it's necessarily the best in terms of everything that can be addressed around the spine. And that's something that, as I said, I experienced myself after a while of keep doing that. After the course was released as well, it was that I become a little bit too loose in my spine, and I was a little bit too soft already, and I needed to start to address a little bit the stiffness of the spine, and to create address this kind of elastic capacity and elastic support in the torso, uh, in the whole core region, let's say, how to stiffen and use appropriately my core in order to support the spine better. So yeah, because you asked me why the spine, I wanted to first of all clarify that was more like a fantasy. It was, I like to move the spine at that point. I thought that I came up with some interesting ideas for people to explore. And I just wanted to share with them, because I just had them in mind, and I saw that people also really enjoy them, and they were requesting. I said, okay, I'm going to create something on it. But I think there are other ways we should engage with our spine in order to look more for longevity and health. And something that I'm actually thinking about and wanting to come up with something in that direction as well. But probably it's going to take a while. Yeah, so this is why the spine. This is why metamorphosis. It's because it was a fantasy. It was fun. I wanted to share it. Everyone like who wants to engage in spinal ways and learn. I think there is a lot there, and maybe a quite a unique approach, let's say, in terms of or in terms of the diversity. But yeah, it's again not necessary to have that kind of awareness just on one motion, right? Because the spine can do so many other things. It can be, if you want, you can go in that direction, but again, it's not a necessity. It's not everyone should just develop that kind of quality and such a capacity of waving the spine.
Yes. Yeah,
Yeah.
I see what you mean. I just enjoy it so much because for me personally, it was so nice to be able, especially at the tail, um,
Mm.
to just feel it and to be able to
Yeah.
start moving it, because for me it was way too stiff, and I cannot describe it even with words how much joy this brings to me that I can move this area. I think it somehow
Yeah.
really deeply has a deep effect on me, because
Yeah.
I didn't move it at all, I think, and now yeah, I have more space there.
Yeah. Probably as like for the general public, for the people who are not going to go obsessively about that, it's going to be very beneficial, right? Because it's going to just bring the right amount of awareness of what it can do in this kind of plane and this kind of motions. Um, just yeah, don't take it where I took it, because then you will have to do other things to compensate for your stupidity.
So,
Yeah.
last question. I had email contact with you, and you said there's going to be another program, probably this summer. Would you like to share a
Yes.
little bit about that?
Yes. Yeah, why not? Well, I'm working right now. I'm working on, it's called the Creative Athlete on legs development. And this one is the most extensive course that I developed up to this point. It's really robust. It's going to have over 20 chapters, and one chapter does not represent a class. So a chapter can be long as much as 3 or 4 classes, let's say. I don't know exactly how many hours. I think over 20 hours. Really a big a big piece of work that I'm doing right now. And it's something that I created because I ended up I started to realize that the most important thing is to be able to properly organize yourself on 2 feet and move on 2 feet, right? Because as human animal evolved to be a bipedal animal, right? So we got from quadrupedal position into a standing erect position, which allowed us to see further in our horizon, freed our arms to be able to manipulate the environment and so on and so forth. And we need to nourish, let's say, this our phenotype and respect our phenotype. And I see that a lot of people, for some reason, and probably it was like for some reason I was in the same kind of place, um know better how to move on 4 limbs or know how to do a backflip, are more interested in doing a backflip, are more interested in developing some eye-catchy kind of skill than properly move on 2 feet. And I also observed not just the importance of moving on 2 feet, but how much freedom it brings once you are able to move on 2 feet. There is so many things that you can do if you can move properly the legs, and if you develop a strong and resilient a strong and resilient base. So I think right now it's my one of the most important areas. Also in the workshop, I address a lot. We do footwork, we do all kind of balance kind of practice, practicing open base, small base, low gate, high gate, transitioning in between levels, but focusing mostly on legs, how we move the legs, how we organize ourselves above. Yeah, this course is going to have all kind of chapters, from health and longevity to martial arts kind of inspired, where we are going to practice different styles of kicks, incorporating kicks into a more coordinative manner, more playful manner, not necessarily like martial arts, by using them in a more kind of a dancey way. We'll have footwork, running pattern, low gate chapters. We look at biotensegrity and fascia. We will look at how to use different tools to harness this quality, the tensegrity quality of the system, and so much more. And this one, I think it's going to be released next month, I hope. And it's going to be also a new format of learning. So it's going to be the registration. It's going to be open for a little while, because I'm going to also have, with the group of the people who are registering for the course, they will have lifetime access to the classes. But we are also going to do 3 or 4 Zoom classes, which are going to be based on theory and philosophy. And we are going to approach different themes. First of all, we are going to talk about some guidelines of how to use the course. And then we are going to go into constraint-led approach, and how to use constraints in order to create your own tasks. Talk a little bit about fascia and the tensegrity system. Talk a little bit about human animal, and so on and so forth. So there are going to be a lot of areas addressed. I'm going to try also to address areas that are going to be practical and applicable as well, not necessarily to philosophize as much as giving practical ideas. And the community as well is going to have a space on the platform where we can write, and I'm going to encourage the people to send videos from their practice, and I'm going to also give themes. So this month we are looking at chapter whatever and whatever, and everyone works as much as they want, obviously, and they can also something else, but more like a little bit of guidance. And they can send videos, so I can gather a little bit of information and maybe give some general cues, because the more videos I will have, I don't want to go particularly to correct everyone, but give some particular, some general cues based on what I'm seeing that might help everyone else to, yeah, maybe figure out the task or whatever it's necessary in the specific context. So yeah, this is going to be the new format, and this is going to be the next course. And as well, I have some others that I still need to edit. But yeah, there is something that I'm trying to more and more to be able to create material that allows me to support the students, and not just to put my fantasies, but to put the things that I really think they are valuable and important there, that will allow people to really engage in their practice in a more versatile way, and become autonomous in their practice and learn how to better move. Yeah.
Amazing. You can sign me up. I'm definitely going to join. And I have to honestly say, I'm really happy that I signed up to your fantasies before it was not possible anymore, because I really enjoyed them as well. And yes, so was really.
Yeah, I mean they will keep coming under the form of improvisation. So I will have together with Josephine, with my pattern with my partner. We are going to create improvisational specific kind of courses, and they are going to be just fantasies.
Yeah, it's just amazing. You know, I was like a little child. Okay, next chapter. What are we gonna do today? It was like playing around with ideas, and I really
Yeah,
enjoyed
yeah,
it.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yes, so thank you very much for your work. It helped me a lot. I know it helps also other people a lot, and this is also why I want to share it, also with my community of people, because I always try to convince them to go deeper also into a physical practice. And I think you're a great resource for that. So thank you. And yeah,
Thank you.
what's the easiest way to connect with you, to find your stuff? And
Yeah, I think it's my Instagram page. It's the only platform where I'm constantly posting. So I don't have a YouTube or Facebook or things like this. I mean, I have them, but I'm not putting out there anything. And if anyone has questions, they can contact me either on Instagram, but it might take a little while until I answer, or via email, which can also take a little while until I answer. I'm just like, yeah, I'm trying to take care of how much I'm like being there, answering, because it takes time. And yeah,
with a
but
clear framework.
yeah,
Great. Thank you so much for taking time, sharing, and talking.
yes,
It was a
yes,
pleasure and
thank you,
inspiring to talk to
thank
you.
you. I hope someday we will meet in the physical world,
I hope so too.
flesh and bones.
Flesh and bones. I'm
Yeah,
looking already at your workshops and see when I can make it.
yeah.
Great. Okay. Thank you, Stefan. So I'm gonna